This is always funny because you've always got me going, oh, is it working? Is it working? I think it is. And then I'm going to do this. View live stream on YouTube. Okay, so welcome everyone to this live panel roundtable on unconscious bias and emotional labor this evening. It's quite a personal topic. It's something that I've been witnessing a lot of in the volunteering work that I do with Extinction Rebellion, and that I've had a lot of conversations with in places where I feel safe to speak about it. And then the actual, like, the hard bit is where I don't really feel safe to talk about it, but it needs to be talked about. So, like, that's been a real steep learning curve for me, and normally means I just get really like filled with adrenaline, and I'm in this place of like feeling sort of scorching heat of injustice. And so yeah, I'm definitely on my path with it, with like how to sort of navigate what implicit or unconscious bias is all about, and at the same time try to like make it okay to talk about it without without making it about judgment or about people being a good person or a bad person, because it's not about that. And the science says that we all have implicit bias from the moment we're born. It develops. So I'm going to start. We've got some wonderful friends of mine here. I'm so happy you're here, everyone, and Charlotte's just joined. I'm so happy. Thank you for your time and being here. And yeah, thank you for making time for this. Very blessed that you're here. I'm going to start by sharing a little video, which is slightly, it's slightly corporate, but
Mum, I ate all of my sweet corn.
yeah, let's see. We'll watch it because I think it introduces what all this is about. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. There we go. I hope you can hear this. If you can't hear it, can you wave at me? Because I don't know if I've done the right thing.
Mom, I ate all of my corn.
Can't hear it, can you?
Can't hear it, but we can read it.
Oh. Why can't you hear it?
It's very faint. I can hear something that's quite faint, but
just need to turn it up, Hester. Just turn it up.
Not me. I'm not like that.
Yep, we're hearing it.
Can hear it.
Turn it up.
Honest mistake.
Bit louder.
A blind spot. Our unconscious mind is a mysterious and powerful thing. It makes 90% of our decisions without us even knowing it. Our brains are overloaded with 11 million pieces of information every second. Yet we can only process about 40 of it. So we're wired to make cognitive shortcuts, using past experiences to make assumptions. And you know what happens when we assume. Our unconscious mind can put us on autopilot, determining where we sit, who we eat lunch with, who we turn to for advice, and who we choose to offer a helping hand. Living our lives with blind spots can put us in a tunnel. Same point of view, same decisions, same outcomes. We can find ourselves trapped in the land of snap judgments and misconceptions. We've all been on both the giving and receiving end of blind spots. Think about it. Who's talented? Who's able? Who can I trust? Who belongs? We've all been there. Blind spots are part of the human condition. Our choices have consequences for us and the people we interact with. By accepting that blind spots exist, we can stop. Imagine what possibilities exist if we could do it all over again. Different perspectives, inclusive relationships,
Going on.
diverse networks, better outcomes.
Gets a bit.
Seeing people for who they really are. People like you
I hate this bit.
with unlimited potential.
How do I turn it off?
We all have blind spots. Once you accept that you have.
Right. So I don't know how to find it now and turn it off. I forget. There it is. Escape. Stop. This is why people need to help me with technical stuff. I'm hearing so many different things. What can you hear?
Nothing.
Hear you.
Oh, good. Oh man, I'm not ready for this. It's like
Oh,
I had about 4 YouTube things all opening at the same time, and one was too loud, and I couldn't hear the other one. And did you get any of that? Basically, that it does become a little bit corporate, but what it should introduce, hopefully, is this idea that we're wired in a certain way, and there's the research that shows that we respond in a certain way to certain faces, and another way to other faces, and a certain way to people in the way they're dressed. Gender's one of them, like skin color's another one, people's names, whether they're English or whether they're not English. And what the research shows is that, unfortunately, if you are brown or black skinned, you'll be treated in a certain way. If you are in an English speaking country and your name is in English, you'll be treated in a certain way. And it's kind of rife and it's everywhere. So this is quite casual. It's just like a talk between friends. There's nothing in particular that like we're trying to hit specifically when we're talking, but I'd like to know from anyone here, like how that might show up, or what you make of this at the moment, just in daily life. Daily life, if anything comes to mind. Because we haven't met Charlotte yet, would you be able to say hello, Charlotte?
sure. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Am I being heard? I'm not great. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for welcoming me into the space. It's great to be here with all of you today. I actually experienced this today, Hester, with my daughter. So her name is Nia Marie, spelled Nia apostrophe Marie. I don't think that's too confusing, really. I mean, I don't. So when we was at the dentist today, we had an awesome experience with the receptionist. They were fabulous, so attentive. They really were. Until we walked into the dentist's office. There was a family before us. We understand that it's all COVID times now, that there are restrictions when you are going to a doctor or a dentist. Completely understood. But my family wasn't offered if we wanted the option for me to be in the room with my daughter or not. And the family before was offered that option. Second of all, when my daughter was asked her name, as I expressed earlier on, her name is Nia Marie. It's pretty much said as it's written, but there was not even an attempt to say her name, to pronounce her name. Now, the family who went in before, that was offered whether or not they would want to go into the room with their child. They were a white family. I never actually noticed it. It was my daughter that noticed it. And it became a problem when another member of staff went into the room with my daughter, and I knocked on the door to ask why someone else was allowed to go into the room. The way that I was responded to was in such a negative way. It was quite disheartening, considering that me and my daughter were having such fun. We were in such a good mood, and we'd had a nice little chat with the receptionist. We'd had quite a good experience. So I knew that we wasn't bringing negativity into the space. If anything, we were bringing joy and laughter into the space. So thank you for asking me. I was listening to a bit of the story, what I could catch on the video, and I thought, my goodness, that I experienced something like this today. So the fact that you've asked me, first of all, I am grateful to share, but also not happy about what I'm sharing. So this is one of the things that we come across quite a lot. And my children's names are ethnically diverse, absolutely, but they're not unable to be pronounced. And then even if you did get it wrong, there's no offense in trying. There's no offense in making an effort and then saying, oh, I'm sorry, because I do that a lot, guys. I'm constantly mispronouncing people's names, but I'm always responding with, I'm sorry if I've offended you. And the majority of the time, you've got to be honest, people are fine. There's never an issue, because you can genuinely tell people's intentions by their energy and what they give off. So yeah, that's a little experience that we went through today.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I think lots of people can relate about, especially about the name. Mutia. I probably said your name wrong right now. It's Mutia, isn't it?
It's quite funny actually, just about names. I wasn't going to say this, but this is just something that just come up now. Because I'm in this kind of group which is around sort of supporting somebody who's training to be a minister actually in the church, and about spiritual. But one of the things that they need to do in their training is look at unconscious biases. Mm-hmm. So this part of the group was saying, you know, what do you want to be called? And I said, oh, actually, my name, even though it's Mothia, is an anglicized version. I've been thinking about whether I want to be called the Arabic. I learned recently that the Arabic version is Motiur. I've been thinking whether, so can you call me Motiur? And it was quite, and then, but then I kept forgetting that was what I wanted to be called. And but then I don't know. Anyway, the whole thing about the name is that I actually think the Anglicized, this is what I've grown up with, and this country is my, so even if I adopted the Motiur, it wouldn't be my name. So I was thinking, maybe if I can own this name as that I am from two cultures, and actually recognize that, and then re-own my name, Mothia, from that place, I feel a bit more comfortable now with it. Now I've spoken it out and gone through this process of it. But the thing is, what I was going to bring up from what Charlotte was saying as an ordinary event, because I just triggered a remembrance of this quite a kind of key moment in my life actually, even though it's quite small. But it was about 2 years ago, and my sister came to visit me in Devon, and you know, it's kind of, I feel like this is my home in some ways. And I was in a cafe, and it's quite a small cafe in this little village, and wasn't really thinking about anything, just with my sister and having, the waitress came up and I said, oh, have you got any of this kind of tea? And she said, no, we don't have that kind of tea. And I said, oh, well, do you have this kind? She said, no, we don't have that either, or something. And I said, oh, well, then I'll just have maybe my face dropped or something. And I said, oh, I'll just have a hot chocolate. I can't remember where it was. But then, and she didn't come and serve us for like ages. And I was tied to my sister. I think, oh, maybe they're just like not paying attention. And then I saw that some other people came on, like family, and they'd ordered some stuff. And then their tea was being served. And I was still trying to chat to my sister, but I was being really distracted. Like, what's going on here? And I felt I was getting really hot. And I was like, do I say something? But the thing is, if I said something, I was like, how do I separate this about being just me not being served properly? Or is it a racial thing? And this is the thing I couldn't work out. And I was like, but if I bring this up, then it looks like it's a racial attitude. So I don't really want to bring it up, so I won't say anything. So that's what was going in my head. I don't want to bring it up because it makes them feel uncomfortable. It would make her feel uncomfortable. So I didn't really want to bring it up. But because it was like, my sister was there, and I was like, and she was seeing something, and I was like, I need to say something. So I said, hang on a second, can you just excuse me, I'm just going to say something. So I went up to her, to the waitress, said, look, we've been here for a while, I haven't been served yet. And then she was, oh, I'm really terribly sorry. And then I went sitting back down. She brought out the tea, and you could see she was really embarrassed. And she said, you don't have to pay anything. And then left. And I thought, oh, okay. And then my sister, is everything all right? I said, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. But I still haven't processed what that went on there. And I was like, what? Like, there's so many levels of like the unconscious, but like I was trying to protect the lady from wanting to feel that she was being described in a certain way. And I think what potentially, I don't know what Charlotte was experiencing from the way that person reacted, was like, it's almost as if you're labeling them in a certain way. And I think that's what I was feeling. I didn't want to label her. I just wanted to say I'm not being served properly. But maybe there was that also going on. So, you know, there's all these layers, because we're not comfortable, we haven't got a language, the emotional intelligence to even bring it up in a clear way. We get in all kinds of stuff that happens.
Yeah, Liba.
Hello. Yeah, just following on from Motia. Yeah, hi, Charlotte. Yeah, following on from Motia about the language is something that I was thinking of kind of everyday examples, but maybe I'll kind of give an idea of what kind of unconscious biases that I come up, what comes up for me really in my experience. A lot of it is to do with kind of assumptions, projecting into the future with assumptions from the past. I think we all do that in so many ways, but I think language does that more than probably anything else. I think that's why there's so much miscommunication and misunderstanding in this world, especially when it comes from the written word and using words to mean something, because words in and of themselves don't really mean much unless you place them in a certain context or you place them in a certain situation around the words. And it's how you say it. For example, you could say something which means something negative. Like, I'll give you a typical example, or something that I really think of is the word sick. So of course, in slang, in street slang, the word sick can mean good, and it's the way you say it, and how you say it. So of course, if you say it with a posh accent, whilst trying to be very serious, clearly you're trying to say that someone's ill or not well or something like this. But yeah, if you say it with an East London accent and it sounds like you're from working class background and you are talking to someone else who's a mate who's similar age to you and you're young and you say sick, it probably means that it's very good and it's a good thing. So yeah, I think it's funny how words and the kind of language behind how we use it, the intentionality of it can get miscommunicated or misunderstood. I think words have so many assumptions built into it. The way we transmit our kind of feelings, our thoughts, our ideas, before the other person even hears it, they're already built up an assumption of what you're saying or what you're thinking or what you're feeling, because we all project into the future. We all build this kind of sense of identity or sense of kind of who this person is. Because I think as human beings, we often seek perfection in things which are imperfect or try to find order within chaos. We try to kind of project by, I don't know, you try to look up at the moon and you see the moon's almost full, but actually it's not. It's almost full. It's pretty much there, but you feel like, oh yeah, it's a full moon. But I think it's this idea of completion or perfection that we all seek ultimately. And we'd like to kind of project that into the future through the kind of assumptions that we build. And I think that's why this kind of work around unconscious bias is really, really important, to kind of slowly do some of this kind of deconditioning work, kind of get rid of some of the kind of hardwired conditioned thoughts which are so kind of prevalent in our being from when we're born. Yeah, that's my contribution for now.
Yeah, but how do we do that? How do we undo the stuff that's hardwired? And it does. I don't think it will happen like that. It's a very tiny, like, baby steps thing, and maybe like this is the first step. For example, being able to share and like find words and also make it a normal conversation. Yusuf or Alfie, do you want to share your thoughts so far? Alfie.
Unconscious bias, it just happens in everyday life, like so many times, whether it's going to a bar and not being able to see me as a black person at the bar, but be able to see every white person that comes to the bar after you, and other people will serve them before you, and you're looking at them and they're like, it's like they completely see through you. Other examples is presuming of what kind of person you are, like the angry black female, when you call up something because the expectation to what you want has not appeared, and you rightly say this is not correct, but then because you're able to critique what they've done, you know, they wouldn't do that to other people, but then they will stereotype you. I always come back to, I think Liba mentioned it a little bit, but didn't use the same word that I would use, is intuition. We are in a much bigger sense of much bigger populations where we don't necessarily all know each other, and to have things that makes signals that says you're this kind of a person so that I can trust you, in a world where we don't have the ability to get to know people that well, is also almost like a defense mechanism to make people feel comfortable. So there's all these various signposts that can be, I mean, Liba mentioned it, so is Motier, language, what kind of things we like, what things we don't like, that can be also signposts. And then what's really uncomfortable is people not noticing any of this. They can just blindly walk around in their lives saying there isn't actually a problem at all. You know, mentioning names, if you've got any kind of name that doesn't sound, as far as they're concerned, English or British, straight away people can say, well, I don't really understand this, so it doesn't I don't have to deal with it. So that's where it comes. I mean, I can't remember who it was who did the little thing where they did the names on CVs, and they did it with what was considered to be non-British, non-English names, and what's considered to be classical English and British names. And in those surveys, when they were doing the CVs, everyone with a more or less what was not considered a British or English name wasn't getting interviewed, even with exactly the same qualifications. So for me, it's about intuition on steroids. That's what bias is. It's intuition on steroids with no check and no balance. And, it means a certain level of what I would say, walking through life totally aware of what's going on and not just rushing through life to get through things easily. It's something that I find amusing, because as a person of color, as a black person, you can't do that. I have to be able to tell the difference between different types of people to make sure that I can survive and walk through this world. But if you're white, and don't get me wrong, there are pecking levels within white as well, because white European isn't seen as particularly great at this present moment. I just find it really amusing because it's intuition, and for you to deal with that, you have to have, what do they call it? It's a Buddhist thing where I think it's a Buddhist teaching where you kind of like slow yourself down and walk and deal with one thing at a time, and be very conscious about what you're doing in your life and how you go around and how you interact with people. And I think the majority white community just doesn't have any of that. We have to be seen as the annoying person to point it out. And then there's also a sweet moment. There's a sweet moment as well when they realize, when that penny drops and they look back through all the interactions. Like an example was, I have a friend who shall remain nameless, and she's a good lass, but if she's had a drink, she can be a bit argumentative. And I've always said to her, come on, let's go. We don't need to get involved with this. And I'm with her, and she's been a bit leery and mouthy. And I got a message from her not even a couple of months ago saying, I'm so sorry, Alfie. Every time I was in those situations, I was with you. And if anything had kicked off, they would have gone for you. Much worse, they would have gone for me, because I'm a pretty little white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. Well, actually, no, she's got ginger hair and blue eyes. And then the dawn comes in. The dawn comes in, and then the behavior can switch overnight. But the point is where their bias comes into play. And it's across the board. It's not just race. It's not just about women. It's not just about people from different cultures and communities. Sorry, I've just pressed my phone, and unfortunately the message has come up instead of keeping me on Zoom. So I've lost all your faces and I'm freaking out. 1 second, I'm trying to get back on. Yes, I'm back on now. Sorry about that. Just
It's all right. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Message off, and I lost all your faces. So again, I'm going to say that the real big thing for me is intuition on steroids, and people not being able to trust people. So they have to fall back to what they know as the characteristics of trust. And that isn't on good character. That's on looks. That's on what they know as their own culture. That's on what feels familiar. And that's hard work. I think that's a lot of hard work, which they're going to have to get on board with, because, the time is now. Yeah, I'm out. I don't know who else wants to go next.
The time is now, this very moment. I remember Charlotte saying that, or Bhavini saying that a couple of weeks ago. This is the moment. It's not good enough anymore to ignore this stuff. Youssef.
Just something that struck me through all of these things is how all these experiences just rob us of joy, because it's always at moments of joy, like when you go into a bar, when you're in a cafe with your sister, or when you've just had a great time at the receptionist and you're with your daughter, and then how it just changes instantly, because a lot of the time we're there with joy, like, when I moved into my flat recently at Deptford and I met two of my neighbors, it's like, I'm coming with myself and my smile, and I'm like, hey neighbor, and then you get shit shoved in your face. And it just robs you, like, that's what it does. It just robs you of joy, and then not only does it rob you of joy of that moment, but then if you ever do bring it up, you get labeled as whatever you get labeled as the argumentative one or the defensive one. And it's like, so then not only are you robs you of joy, puts you in this other bracket of the troublemaker or whatever, and then you have to do the emotional labor on top to like explain it. It's just like, it's a lot to carry around, to have to do all of that and then actually have to live your life and do your work and do all the other things that you're doing. It's a lot.
Do you want to say any more about what was going on when you moved? And I mean, you did tell me that.
Yeah,
story,
I did tell you, but I haven't told anybody else. Yeah, so I just moved to a new place in Deptford, and it's quite a mixed. I think it's quite a mixed building. Deptford is certainly very, very diverse, and on my first night, one of my neighbors, I'm pretty sure, I don't have proof of it, but older white woman, my bike was parked where everybody else's bikes are parked, and she chucked it down the stairs. And in the morning I woke up and I'm like, no way, this is my first night. My bike can't have been stolen. But it wasn't. And there's just no way that it would have fallen all the way down 2 flights of stairs. Someone had to throw it down. Anyway, second time I met my neighbor, older white man. First time he saw me. So of course, first time I saw him. So I'm like, hey, I'm, Youssef, I moved in here. That's what I was going to say. But as soon as he saw me, he said, oh, are you the help? And I'm just thinking, is that the first thing you say to a person of color who's come out of your building? And also you live in Deptford, like. And then my other neighbor, met him, 80-year-old man, been living in Deptford for 50 years. So he's seen all the people. And we were talking, and he said, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Leicester. And he's like, oh, but you don't look like you're from Leicester. And I'm like, but you live in Deptford. Surely you know that you don't have to be white to be from this country. And Deptford, like I think Hester was saying, like, people of colour have been coming into Deptford for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years for the shipbuilding. Like, it's not new. So yeah.
Thank you. I'm so glad you live closer to me now.
Me too.
I got my buddy around the corner. Muttiar, you had your hand up. Oh, you're muted. Hold on.
Yeah, no, it's just hearing all these stories and also hearing your what you said, Hester, about what is it we can do. And then Alfie mentioned something about Buddhist practices, and I was just listening yesterday. And I was just this Buddhist called Pema Chodron, and something she speaks in really plain language, and she said something about removing armor, and she said, if both of the people in the dialogue know your intention is to remove your armor, you'll get to different results, or something along those lines. And I just kind of thinking around, okay, so some similar to what Yusuf has mentioned, two things that have happened kind of recently, and this is in Devon when I went to see, for example, the Conservative MP, and we were in the waiting lobby to speak to her. And there's a few of us there, like we were going to speak about something about fracking, anti-fracking campaign. And he sort of, I think he was just trying to be friendly, and he told me, so where are you from? And I said, Leeds. And I said, oh, okay. But where are you really from? I mean, where are you really from? And I said, oh, I think you want to talk about my ethnicity and well, my parents are from. But anyway, I didn't think that really moved the conversation forward, and everybody was rolling their eyes and so on. And I didn't really. And then another time, somebody who might say, "Oh, your English is so articulate," and I don't know how to. But I was. In those two situations, I normally just close down. I don't know how to respond, other than go, "Oh well, I'm from. That's because I'm from England." But what I was thinking was just now is like, if I could have that conversation, not if I don't get triggered into a place of getting angry, if I would said, "Look, be really interesting if we both come with this conversation to let go of our armor. Like my armor might be to put a shield, yours might be some. What would you be willing to engage in that? And then from that place where we've got that intention to say, this is what I'm feeling, or this is what's coming up. What's coming up for you? What's your armor? What's your defense mechanism? Because then we get to see that, because we both have defense mechanisms in a way, and it's like trying to make clear what defenses are coming up. So the other person might be like shutting down because they projecting something as well. I'm just wondering whether that might be a way, but I don't know. I never tried it yet, so I might do that next time.
Does that bring anything up for anyone else? Anyone else got a Charlotte and then Liba? Hey, unmute Charlotte.
So sorry. Massive sigh, had to be muted with all those testimonies, because even though I have been hearing these type of stories for years, every single time I hear them, it's kind of like, what, still? Are we still doing this? So are we still having generations of people teach their children to treat others this way? Are we so detached? Are we so far from the truth of what we are and where we come from that there's just no recognition when we look at each other? It's like, when I look at people, of course I see your colour, of course I do. I'm not blind, but I do look for the best, and I don't ever go around assuming negativity. But using the story from today, and thinking about it as I'm listening to you guys share with us, it happens so much throughout the day that you find yourself joyful and happy, and then unfortunately something ugly will raise its head. And someone mentioned intuition earlier. Forgive me because I can't remember who said it.
Yeah, Alfie talked about intuition.
Alfie, thank you, because I think we are trained to ignore. Because sometimes, think about it, we're walking into a situation and you may feel something before you walk in, but you just ignore it and you keep going, you walk through, and then the negativity that you're met with is kind of that sensing that you had before you walked into it. And you can, Liba, you mentioned the word sick. And I was thinking about, when you said it, I was thinking, gosh, there's many ways to say it. So like, yeah, that's sick, it's great. You know, the vibe with that is bubbly, it's alive. But then if it's delivered with that gruff bass in the voice, there's anger there, you know that it's not coming from a good place. And one of the things that I really practice now, and I encourage people around me to practice, is to listen to that feeling that you get. There's a reason we get it. And sometimes that feeling is that they're trying to protect you in one way or another. Now, I know that there's an element in fear when we're accomplishing new things. It's very different. It's a very different emotional feeling to when you're being confronted with a negativity that has no foundation, or when you're fearful about a feat you're about to do. It's a very different feeling. I live in hope every single day that more people are waking up to the truth of that, the lie that we've been fed, which is the systematic racism that we receive and the systematic script that has been downloaded into our white counterparts who project. So in a sense, I really do feel there is a kind of mirroring, but in a sense that it's not equal. We know it's not equal because on one side, one of us could lose a whole lot more than the other. So I really do, encourage people that are listening to trust your intuition. We are not so far from, we're not so far from God that we can't hear these words. I'll leave it there.
If I may, I want to try and name the lie. White superiority,
Yes.
white supremacy, and then more than that, heteropatriarchal white supremacy.
Speak it. Thank you, Hester.
It's a lie. And I think maybe the white people watching need to say that a few times to themselves. White supremacy, white superiority, heteropatriarchal white supremacy is a lie.
Yes. But the more you feel, I love that she's in agreement with her mum.
He's a boy, by the
way.
way.
He's just so gorgeous. Sorry.
He is gorgeous.
He is.
He is. Charlotte, carry on. And then I think Liba wanted.
Oh, no, I'm kind of flawed now. Babies get me a little, sorry.
Liba, all yours.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Great contribution. I do like the kind of phrases about following your heart or following your gut, kind of speaking to the intuition that Alfie was talking about, because there is obviously something in this, something primordial, something unconscious within us, which is timeless, really. It's just something which is part of our spirit, our makeup of who we are inside. So yeah, listening to that is really important, and knowing what that is. So yeah, I wanted to kind of link that to meditation and kind of practice of meditation, because as to the question around Hester, you saying how we can start being aware of some of these things and confront them and change some of those habits. I think meditation for myself anyway has been really, really key. I only started meditating in my mid-20s, and it took me a while to get around to it for various reasons, but I'm really happy that I did. One of the main benefits and breakthroughs for me through doing meditation practice, and I did it through kind of going to Buddhist centers and going to retreats and connecting with people in these spaces, was to start realizing actually the thoughts kind of project themselves, run away, and have this kind of storyline that keeps building. And how do we kind of just get ourselves and our mind out of these thoughts, which are kind of clogging up our space, our memory, our identity, who we are and who we see ourselves to be. I think those thoughts actually take away from our experience of life itself, because we become preoccupied with them. We live in this kind of virtual world, which is very inner. And as a result, we don't necessarily actually see that sense of connection with the reality around us and within us ultimately. So I think this is something that I noticed for doing meditation, picking up on kind of unconscious biases, like the need to perhaps, maybe one example I can give that really helped was the need to kind of fit into certain groups, social groups, especially when it came to like drinking or eating out or having kind of social activities. I think I found myself going to these places and groups more often than not, just to feel like I'm contributing or fitting in, or feel like this is a way to kind of socialize and do something with my time when I had some free time, rather than on a Friday evening after work of 5 days, going to a meditation space and slowing my life down and really reflecting, which I think was very alien to me in my younger 20s. I found that really strange as something that people would do. But I think I changed my mindset over these kind of expectations and the assumptions that are built into our kind of everyday world. When it comes to what does it mean to actually enjoy yourself or have fun. For some people now, that might be having several pints in a pub. For others, that might actually just be a walk in nature, and even solitude, being by yourself and having some reflective time to actually wind down, to integrate a little bit more, to look a bit deeper within yourself. And actually changing those habits are so powerful. They can lead to really positive kind of sets, mindsets or ways of being, I believe. Yeah, I just noticed how many of the kind of negative habits and negative thought patterns that I took up were reciprocal to the kind of society that I came from, the kind of university lifestyles, and the need to fit in and need to kind of feel like I actually belonged to a group, to a social group, to my peers, to whoever it was. And ultimately, although it was fun on the surface of things, it created a lot of suffering in my experience. And it created a lot of pain that I didn't necessarily know was kind of there until I processed it afterwards, through stilling my mind, through realizing actually, when I'm completely left alone with nothing to do, where do I go? Do I seek enjoyment, pleasure, fun? What is it that keeps me going essentially in life? And those kind of things that I had to kind of take up and start releasing were actually eventually, when I reflected back on it, quite habitual and negative. Whether that be drinking or smoking or going out somewhere that I didn't need to go out, spending money that I didn't need to spend, and so forth and so on. So yeah, these kind of unconscious biases really do exist for everyone and everywhere. I think the kind of societal implications of them are really, really big. I mean, you're talking about racial bias, which is massive. White people viewing black people, brown people as lesser or not as equal to, and that's pervasive everywhere, like you guys have been saying. I mean, the fact that Trump got how many ridiculous number of votes, was it 50 million or whatever, shows that, yeah, there's a lot of people in this world. in America, but also in Britain and other countries where this kind of thinking is still acceptable and still kind of okay to follow, which is, it's really disheartening to know and understand, because we all know that actually one of the biggest lies, I believe, is this story of separation. This story that actually we're all just separate beings living our own little lives and our own caged existences, and actually have nothing to do with each other. It's a complete lie. We are this kind of state of interbeing, interdependence. We are all, in that sense, one as a kind of species. But yeah, I do think that these kind of points of connection are important to kind of notice and just start being aware of, not even just starting to do something about it, but that sense of awareness, a sense of kind of mindful awareness of your actions. What Alfie was saying, I think, alluding to mindfulness, being present and observant of your actions and your behaviors.
Thank you. I love that this has taken a bit of a turn towards spirituality. So I have been able to sort of learn a bit about Buddhism over the years. I used to go to Buddhist festivals, Buddha Field, and I teach yoga, and there's some Taoism that I teach in Yin yoga. And I've shared a little bit with me and Charlotte have shared a little bit about spirituality already. But we are all one. We're not disconnected. Like, that is another huge lie. We are the same. And in a lot of these spiritual practices, it's about realizing our greatness, realizing that the creator, God, and us in our incarnation is the same, and that we are that greatness. The realization of that is very hard, because there's often a lot of pain and we don't feel worth or value. And what you're talking about, Libra, is actually, I think, the same as not feeling that worth or that love, and you need to take something in to feel the value or the worth or the love. But if we know how to connect with that internally, and then we just radiate that love, oh, we're full of love and joy. Doesn't mean that we can't get hurt and beaten, and there's not, like, epigenetic trauma that we've got to process. But I don't want to talk too much. Yusuf or Alfie, I wanted to come to both of you, and then I wanted to share another little thing which is a sort of might stimulate some more thought. Yusuf?
Yeah. Just sort of touching on also what Charlotte was saying. We're all doing the work here. But again, I don't know how many people are doing the work, because if you compare it to all the people that voted for Trump, and like a hell of a lot of white women, a hell of a lot of college educated people, and just taking it back to in one of my friend circles, there's like 2 college educated white, according to them, woke people, who one of them has a partner who's not, all of them have partners who are not white. Not that that means anything, but and I mentioned this to you, Hester, but they were at the Black Lives Matter marches, and of course there's lots of levels to, even for us, there's lots of levels to untrain and de-learn stuff. But somebody just posted a link about how on the Great British Bake Off, there was the Japanese week, and nobody really did a little bit of research on what is actually Japanese food. And some people just thought that was a little bit racist or a little bit dismissive, and for people whose cultures have always been dismissed, people who've taken Indian food for packed lunch and have been called smelly or whatever, it can be a bit dismissive. Like, if you've got a national TV show where it's Japan Week and you're cooking Korean food, like, that's a bit ignorant, because those same people are probably going to go on and have a cooking show and travel the world and explore people's cultures and share that. So it's a bit good, you should have a bit of awareness about it. But those 2, probably 1% white men were like, we don't think that's racist. It's like, but why are you telling us a group of non-white people what is and isn't racist. And I think that the conversation can end up going that way, where it's just, well, that's a bit too sensitive. And I guess like what we've always been talking about is like, do you bring those things up, like in the situation where because you get stumped, like what Mothia was saying, when you are in these situations, you get stumped. And yes, it's about, like, I don't know how you remove your armor in that situation or connect with your intuition. It's all what we've been saying is connected, isn't it? And it's just like, how do you put it into practice? And who leads these conversations, and how do I think in the trust the people thing we did the other day, there was a man in that group, and his name was Neil, and we were talking about names, and he said he found it annoying when people spelled his name wrong. And that to me, that struck me, because I was like, I would never assume that a white person with a name like Neil would have his name spelled wrong. So I think it's also interesting to note that there is a connection, because I didn't mention it. It happens to me all the time, but I mentioned other things about my name. But he said that, it happens to him that people spell his name Neal, when it's right there written in front of them, Neil. And I'm like, shit, that happens to me all the time. And I think it's, in a way, it's good to know that, yes, mine's come with more baggage because of cultural reasons, but his doesn't, because he's, from the dominant culture. But I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. And that's something to connect over, whether you're white or not white. We all have things, and we all come from different places, but actually we all need to remove our armor, and we've all had shit given to us in some way or another.
Oh, that's gold. Alfie, have you got any?
I just think when I hear about all these biases, white supremacy on masculine steroids, right, is difficult, because the difficulty is, without changing any of their behaviors, these particular white individuals can carry on getting all the goodies, having a good life, making sure their kids get the best education, health, housing, etc., etc. And realizing these, understanding these biases means bursting people's bubbles who really don't want their world burst, which is obvious. You can see that in America right now. We all here, I actually, and let me take that back. I don't know about you, Hester. I don't know your background, but I'm going to presume everyone here has had colonialism, something to do with colonialism, possibly slavery, in their parents' or their grandparents' history. And so the biases have all come from this basis, from racism, which is against women, against people of color, their cultures, downgrading of culture, downgrading of language, downgrading on values. Most people of color, Black people, we have a sense of unity and community that doesn't always get reflected in written in the same way. We will often think of the common good rather than individualistic things. So like when we're going to try and tackle, and sorry, when I say try, we have to dismantle this bias that's going on. It's making sure that these white people who gain the most about this understand how dismantling this helps everybody. The climate crisis couldn't have happened without racism. It couldn't have happened without downgrading people because of their language, their culture, their history, and for it not to be seen on the same level as European history and European culture. So it's trying to make people recognize that we've got values that are just as good as yours, but they may be different, and that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and also recognize who is amongst you. Recognize us. I have to recognize white people. I have to recognize within a few moments of someone speaking, whether they're European, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, right, or Northern. I have to recognize that and then be aware. There's nothing worse than calling a Yorkshireman that is from Lancaster Lancashire, because there's that massive, the two roses and all the wars. I have to know these things about the people that I am living with, and they don't. At the moment, we have to draw them in to saying, you need to know who we are, so we're not strangers. We're somebody else in your neighbourhood. We're part of your community, and that these biases that that many people have is a safety net, number one, financially as well as emotionally, because they don't. A lot of these people don't want to spend the emotion on people that they think they have to work hard on, and it's not working hard. If I can do it, they can do it. And I'm just going to say, I'm just looking at what's happened in America, and don't get me wrong, we haven't seen the result yet, but the numbers of people that voted for that man, who, or and being honest, we've got the equivalency with Boris. Boris has said he doesn't see the point in having unbiased training. He's already said that out loud. Doesn't want Black history taught in schools in any way. These are people who've got all the goodies and don't want to change. But we have to force their hand. And thankfully, the younger generation is way better than their parents and their grandparents. They know the situation with the climate crisis, and they understand what is contributing to this. And this is part of it. Yeah, that's it. I'm done.
Do you have anything else about the work? You said the work, having to do that work, noticing those subtle nuanced difference, because that's kind of what I wanted us to talk about a little bit next, like the labor, because it is work.
It's constant, mate. It's constant. So I'm going, I go to meetings, I'm going to, it's time when you're walking down the road doing your shopping, whatever, you're having to let people know where they're going wrong. And then there's this like wide-eyed puppy thing. So you either got to speak them nice and like do it nicely so you don't hurt their feelings, because if you hurt their feelings, they can freeze and not deal with anything and rather throw it all away than having to deal with reality. So you have to be very gentle in how you're speaking about, you're putting a bias over here, and you have to put it in a very, I don't want to say motherly, but just in a very soft manner. Because again, all you can do is drop the idea in the head, and then they have to go away and process that. It's not something that can happen overnight. So like when we're talking about emotional labor, I have to be honest, this is probably why I'm not, I'm 47 or 48 years young, and I only have a certain amount of tolerance to things now, which has made me perhaps seem a little less warm, I suppose. But I just feel when it comes to these kind of things, you have to hit them head on, and it might cause a bit of confusion to start with, but you're dropping that seed, and you will upset people. But I think upsetting is good. This is the awful thing. I'm going to be really honest. People being upset and pushing away what you've just said is very important in the process of finding out what the truth is. And again, I'm going to say it again and again and again. Through our uncomfortableness to our discomfort, we have our biggest growth. And lots and lots of white people, lots and lots of men, when it comes to women and various other biases, they have to go through that uncomfortableness where they suddenly have a realization that they've been doing things wrong for so long, and they can look back on all the instances, and then they come up through to a better side. But discomfort, I love that word, discomfort, because it's where my biggest growths come from, and that's where our Black allies and our white people and everybody else, your biggest growth is through discomfort. You have to see the information, look at it really hard, really clear, realize that you've made mistakes. We're all human here. We all make mistakes. But then what are you going to do to redress the balance, to make things better? But that discomfort, so important, so important. You've got to roll around in it and feel really horrible before you can go out through the other side. So yeah, I'm probably a little bit more harsh with people actually, because I'm just used to it now. And it's when we talk about emotional labor, it's also something to say about what happens to me as a person. It means sometimes you shut things down emotionally because you just need to get through a situation. And that in itself causes tension in the body of this black soul. You know, I've got a lot to give. I can be as nurturing as the next person, but you can only give a certain amount out all the time, because you have to have your points of rest and also have your battery slightly full. You know what I mean? If you do too much, it really can absolutely break you down. And you know, for me, time alone is how I recharge. I like being with people, but then there's a certain point where I just have to switch off and recharge. And you know, sometimes I can do that in a room. I can just switch people off and just be there, but like switch it off. But that's the other thing that people need to realize about emotional labor, is you are taking energy out of somebody who wants to be putting it in something that they actually can contribute to and make better. And instead they're having to baby step you through stuff that you should actually get off your ass and go and learn about. There's plenty of stuff online. There's plenty of books going on. There's plenty of TED Talks, stuff like that. There's loads of things that you can get resources for. So sometimes it shouldn't fall on the people of color, black people, indigenous people to like wake you the heck up. Do you know what I mean?
We can be responsible and be accountable. Yusuf, you got to go. Oh, are you left? Do you want to say bye quickly?
Yeah, I just want to end by saying that I think a lot of the defensiveness can come from thinking that there isn't enough. And I think we just have to sort of think of abundance, because there is enough for all of us. And by dismantling all of this, it doesn't mean that somebody has to have less. It's just redistributed, and there's enough for everyone. And I think I think it's nice to think of abundance, because a lot of the time we forget that actually there's enough in this world for all of us to be everything we need to be. That's all. And it's lovely to meet you all and have this conversation on a Friday evening.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, and
thank you. And
see you soon. I know I'm going to see you soon.
We will. Bye. Have a good evening, everyone.
It is hard to feel abundant, though, I think sometimes when we're in our loss and grief. And I want to call in Bhavini's words to me recently when she said about feeling the grief, but just a little bit at a time, because if you feel it all at once, then there's no moving forward through it. It's too thick and it's too heavy. Yeah, I have Middle Eastern heritage, Alfie. That place, that question of where are you from? Oh, London, I'm from London. Yeah, but where are you from? I'm white passing, white enough, but in many circles where I was as a child, not quite white enough. And my chosen friends and my boyfriends were non-white. So I was always looking at melanated skin, and that's my bias now. That's actually, it's those faces in the park, those mothers, those strangers I would talk to first. And my biases actually are usually against the new white people in the area, the ones that just moved into the expensive apartments. And I will make stories up. Oh, well, they've got the money, or they've got this, or they're just visiting, or they don't really care about this community, or they're here to because it's gentrified now. Now it's good enough for them because there's been investment here. So I have a lot of judgment that I'm trying to work with. And Alfie, when you talked about the discomfort and rolling in it, oh, that's visceral, isn't it? It's like, yeah, just get it all in, get it all everywhere. the fragility of the people that I'm coming across at the moment, which is bringing up the rage in me, is because they don't want to get in that discomfort. And for my friends, I mean, I've been told to go back to where I come from, and I live in Deptford, but I was told that by football fans, football hooligans that were visiting. And I just stared at them. I stared them down. It was on a train carriage, whole train full of, I think they were going to Charlton or something for a football game. I just stared them down. I said, well, why are you like this? And one of them just went, oh, we're daft, ain't we? They were going, get your tits out, they were just being so awful to me. And I was in my home. I was just getting the train home. And I stared them right in the eye and I said, why are you like this? And the man went, oh, we're just daft, ain't we? And I said, you're horrible. And then I just cried. And then stepping out of the station, there were just some lovely local people that said, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm not. Sorry, Mutia and Charlotte had thoughts. I don't know who wants to speak first. Charlotte. Just unmute first, Charlotte.
You know, thank you, Mutia. Thank you. Oh, do you know, Hester, football hooligans, bless their souls, because they are the most emptiest. Forgive me, anyone who is, no, I said hooligan, that's the right word, because of people that just like football and those that abuse. I used to live right next to West Ham football grounds. I was like 5 minutes, if not across the road. And I have experienced meeting some of the most emptiest people who attend matches. I've really got to a point in my life, I'm 41. And as I'm getting older, the more and more people I meet that are so unkind and just reflect such a negative view, I feel like they are the most unfulfilled, because I don't try to understand it, because it's not who I am, and I'm grateful that I'm not around those type of situations on a regular daily basis. But I have experienced some awful name calling. They talk about your physicality. They will mention you may not be good enough. Me as a brown woman, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to wife, love. But I wouldn't say no. I mean, I think someone who says something like that has to be empty. Someone who can see you, I mean, Hester, I can tell you're of mixed heritage, and they were obviously trying to tell you to go wherever your homeland was, as I know that you know. So they deliberately picked on something that they felt was different to make you feel inadequate, and then to come against your womanhood and to talk about, to talk about your physicality must have been so horrendous for you. And that's just a snippet, Hester. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not undermining what you went through, because it's real and it's important and it matters as a woman. And even I would say there was racial abuse in there wrapped up, but these type of people are the most soulless and most emptiest. And I think I'm hopeful, because I believe we all have awakening moments, Whether I'm the one to talk you through to that moment, I don't know anymore. But I'm always willing to speak to those who are at an awakening point, because when you're at that point, the discussion is a lot more free flowing, and that people are a lot more willing to look at the truth of what they were reflecting. When attending the circles, as I said in the last talk, was fabulous for this, because when people really did wake up to their white privilege and their unbiased thinking, they were genuinely appalled. Like, they were genuinely appalled. So my hope is that that can continue. As I said last time, I believe that we are at a massive point of awakening, but there's going to be a lot more to come.
Yeah, there's so much to do. Motia.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all these stories, because it's so important to hear of different people's experiences. And Hester, just hearing your experiences, you know, I can see, yeah, these are all part of it. And what Charlotte said there about they must be empty, it just makes me think of this idea of the empty ghosts that they talk about in Buddhism a lot, about empty. But I'm also part of Exile Muslims. There's one of the surahs, one of the quotes, one of the verses in the Quran is this, and it says, we did offer the trust, and it's called amana, which is the Arabic word. But we did offer the trust. The trust means the trust or moral responsibility of all the duties to be human. So we offered the trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, but they refused to undertake it, being afraid thereof. But man undertook it. Verily, he's been unjust and ignorant of the results of his decisions. And what this brings to me is that this choice, whatever you believe in, to become human is a massive task and responsibility that we have, and we haven't achieved it. We haven't achieved what we can achieve as human beings, like to become human. That's what we're trying to become with each other, and that means to be, to name, you know, to name things. And this is one, and it does mean to step into uncomfortable spaces, and it also means to be stepping into, like, seeing that there are going to be empty ghosts, but those ghosts are there partly to do with there are structure. Like, if you can either tackle it individually, but you're going to exhaust yourself. So if you think the structures themselves are part of the problem, and also they might have in their own agency, that these structures might have their own agency. Like, this is part of the thing that we are thinking about objects, like they have their agency, and it's like, how do you really get to understand what's happening here? And for me, yeah, it's partly the language as well. Like, we don't even have language to say where you're from in a way that can say where is your ancestry from. Like, you know, if I was to see Charlotte, and I was interested in her ancestry, how do I say, oh, where, you know, people don't even know the language. I think people are finding difficulty in finding the right ways of saying things. And like, I find, so, you know, and Hester, you owned to some projection that you may be on the opposite way. And for me, and I want to step into this space of also coming in from the other side of, I find the word white supremacy a little like, so this is something that came up from Exile Gardish Visioning as a statement in the last newsletter around the difference between naming and blaming and shaming. And they said something like, if I can find it, because I think it's just important just to see the difference a little bit. And they said, I can't find it. But basically, you're saying naming is. Here it is. Sorry. Yeah, and when you name, you invite a confrontation with the truth. But unlike blaming, naming does not say you alone own the problem. And unlike shaming, naming does not say I am morally superior to you. It says you have a problem that I have to name. And sometimes I feel that people who adopt and then use white supremacy are adopting a morally superior position, as if I am somehow I've named this now, and therefore you are not in the I'm in a position to be morally cleaner than you, and I think that can also create the defensiveness, because the English themselves have been in this war since a battle against oppression, since enclosures. So you add colonial enclosures when the commoners themselves lost their land. So Wat Tyler's peasant army of 1381, or Jack Cade, who was leading the rebellion from the commons of Kent, and he was hung and quartered because the people in the they didn't, they wanted to show that this rebellion will not hold. That's exactly, these are the same times that the colonial powers is happening against slavery and so on. And we have a common interest against something, and we have to name that it's not about color, it's about structural privilege. And if we keep naming it as if it's about just the color, because these privileges, these biases, the structure that is behind this is beyond color, and yeah, and I feel if we can make it to say that we have this, to become human together, we need to name the structure that is making us into ghosts with each other.
I know I'm going to watch this back so many times to really digest every piece, because it's such a gift, actually. Thank you, Mattia. And thank you for talking about movements and rebellions, because this is kind of where I'm at the moment. Yeah, I'm involved with Extinction Rebellion and have been giving all the energy I have to it, because something has to bring us all together. But it hasn't so far. It's brought some people together, but it hasn't brought everyone together, and we need everyone. So how do we do that? And we maybe you're right, Mattia, but I think that race has got a lot to do with what happens next. So the Black feminist scholar Bell Hooks said, any successful mass movement must be built from the margins to the center. And who is in the margins? And when will the path be cleared for them to walk safely to the center? When's that going to happen? And that's not about tokenism. It's not about ticking the inclusivity and diversity boxes. It's not about the structural change in a way. It's not about the organizational realignment or whatever. That's about each of us in our hearts. Yeah, Charlotte. Just unmute before you speak.
Hester, you know me well. Respectfully, I sometimes feel like we ask this question to the wrong people, because I really feel that those that have are really fearful, because I'm a big believer in what we give, we get, right? So those that have are in a great position, aren't they? And what did they give to get there? I feel like they realize more than what we think they realize. And they're fearful. Can you hear? No.
It's because you've got a drummer in the background.
Oh my gosh, it's the fireworks. Why did they do
That's
that? That's fireworks. Sorry, that's fireworks. That's fireworks. So should I speak a bit louder? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So I'm thinking that there is this revenge they're fearful of. When a lot of people simply just want equality. We're not looking to enslave you, come into your land, rape your women, kill your children, not endorse your culture, but then take it on and then say we do it better. We don't want to do that to white people in power. I mean, forgive me, black and brown on the panel, but correct me if I'm wrong. We do not want to inflict the pain of the past. And I feel that if you were peaceful in how you obtained your wealth, your riches, your stature, where you are, if you was peaceful about it, you would be having the discussion. You would actually be setting up the meeting. You would actually be, doing the press release, however this works. You would be making it mandatory that repetitions are paid, that, everything that has been stolen is repaid. You would be doing it because it's possible. It is possible. It does mean, though, that your land may then become the third world. And I really do believe, yeah, you laugh, I can see you because it's true. I'm sorry, I think about this so much and I have these discussions and it cannot be anything other than fear because the white allies that I meet are freaking amazing. They see the issue, they're willing for the discussion. The first thing I hear is we need to make sure we make up for what had happened. Where we're responsible, where we can make changes, we can change it. So if I'm having conversations with this, like this, with people within the circles, with people that I've met on certain marches and different discussions, but yet the guys at the top don't want to have this conversation. It's because they're not ready to let go of all that they stole or all that they're living off that was stolen. This is how I feel in this situation. Black and brown people and their white allies are not looking for revenge. We do not want to do what was done to us. We actually want what you offered in the first place, which was everyone would be treated in a way that was equal. You know that lie that was told before people were stolen from their lands? That's the truth that a lot of people want to see fulfilled. Sorry, I just can't. Well, no one's looking for revenge. We're just looking for equality for our children. We just want to know that our children can go out and not worry to the same level as what a white person's child can go out. And yes, we do know that within the white community, there is, I think you said, sorry, I'm searching for the word now, but I'm not, Alfie, I think you said the word, and forgive me if I say something wrong here, but there is a certain hierarchy and levels within the white community. I know that. I know how it works. But there is still a privilege even to the lowest level of the community. So how about we just, when I say we be who we really are and what we came here to be, we never came to have all these divides. We never came to have all of these things to separate us. Unity is a massive healer. Acceptance, truth, reflection, thoughts. Own the part that was played and then release what is not yours. I'm done.
Thank you. Ian Lieber.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte, for sharing. Yeah, I wanted to touch upon the kind of idea around why maybe some people just find it really hard to admit the guilt and the kind of reparations that have to be paid essentially of the past. I think it's a difficult thing for some. I think maybe half of it can be explained through ego or power, the sense of kind of domination culture that we have, which is about kind of staking your claim of who you are above and beyond others, for the sake of kind of looking better, or it's kind of fear of judgment, I suppose, from others. So yeah, I think kind of showing your weaknesses and being comfortable to do that is a really, really massive aspect of this. I think those in power find it very difficult to do that, to admit some of their weaknesses, or to show their inadequacies or insecurities, to kind of own up to some guilt. I think accountability and responsibility is such a big thing when it comes to these things. I think we're trying to seek that through our movement at the moment within Extinction Rebellion, for those who clearly are the leaders, those who are the power brokers and decision makers. And I think one of the things that I was thinking of whilst you were talking was around how those who are oppressed become oppressors, and how you were saying how those who are Black and brown, it's not about taking over or doing something out of revenge. It's actually about working together and working with each other to find the solutions, which is going to be equitable for everyone and just going to create justice for everyone. Because if we just create justice for ourselves as Black and brown people, we're marginalizing and excluding other people. And that's what's happened to us. So we're no better than what's happened to us essentially historically. I think it's really important. I think there is this kind of propensity within us where we feel like we've been oppressed or harmed or exploited in some way. And when we seek, or when we have a sense of freedom or sense of power, to abuse that power, to kind of use that against others for the sake of kind of fulfilling our own destiny or fulfilling our own sense of who we are, which I think is a really dangerous trap, but easy one to fall into. Whenever there's any sort of kind of sense of power that we can grab, or sense of kind of feeling better about ourselves through our actions, I think a lot of people may kind of fall into that trap in so many ways. I think that's why kind of things like money, power, fame are very much alluring things in our society that a lot of people kind of fall into. For example, I don't know, an artist is something that I can think of, someone who writes or performs or reads, whatever it is. Your intention might be starting off with, I just want to do this for everyone. I want to do this as a therapeutic thing, as a means of connection, as a means of kind of telling my story, but it might become something completely else as you kind of get more powerful or more famous or have this kind of sense of status. So I think it can literally happen to anyone when you've been so oppressed, or when you've been kind of put down so many times in your society, in the society that you live in. When there is kind of a chink of freedom, a little bit of freedom, I think people tend to kind of not know what to do with it. I think a really good illustration of this is, I was in a meditation class with some people in Nepal. I really distinctly remember this because it was quite early in the morning. The guy who's teaching us, a very cool guy. He liked Tai Chi and various other kind of martial arts practices. But we're all meditating. I think a few of the people found it a bit difficult to. And as soon as the person left, I think all of us kind of opened our eyes when the teacher left for 5 minutes. Because there's that little bit of freedom where no one's observing you and there isn't a judgment necessarily involved. and you have this kind of sense of power, I suppose, to kind of do what you want with it. And I think it also happens a lot with kind of children, this kind of sense that you have this kind of sense of freedom or sense of kind of power to do what you want to, but you're not sure how to deal with that situation, because it doesn't necessarily allow itself very often to be completely unsupervised and completely unregulated to do what you want to. So yeah, I think that's something, since we're children really, because we're put in our place, aren't we, from our parents, from teachers, from kind of authority figures. What do we do when we actually don't have that sense of imposition from a hierarchy or power? And when we do have power and the tables turn, how do we actually do anything about it? I think maybe like an example of that is a lot of people say they turn into their parents when they become older, when they do have children. So they observe all the things that happened to them when they were children from their parents, and then in turn, they become like their parents in the way they treat their children. So I think it's a really common thing to happen. Maybe it's part of human nature, who knows?
It's complicated, right? The oppressed becomes the oppressor stuff. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in what you were just saying. And we've run out of time as well this evening. Like we did say, it was just going to be an hour and a half. So let's do a part 2 and a part 3, and or I don't know, like write your thoughts. Yeah, women do know what to do next. I don't think there is this thing of what do we do once we have the power. For everyone, it's getting in touch with the feminine, because it's that side of us that is the connected, the intuitive, the receptive, the sensitive, the sensual, it's going this way, it's spread, it's being all encompassing. It's not this or this, it's everywhere, all times. Yes, it's that lusciousness, that connectedness, and the continuum. It's the spirals, it's the roundedness, it's the circular. That's the feminine. It's the listening, it's the holding. So I'm not concerned that when the power shifts, that there'll be this collapse of like, oh, well, we'll just repeat the same oppressions and traumas. Pardon me, sorry. Like the child's banging. And I wanted to give a Leela Watson quote. 1 second. Okay, so Leela Watson, she does get quoted a lot. She was born in 1940, an Indigenous Australian, and she says she's an activist and an artist, and yeah, amazing woman. If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. Alfie, do you want to say any more before we go? I think we've got like a minute left maybe together.
All I wanted to say is that unconscious bias is part of the unfortunate toolkit. I know I'm just going to stick with white supremacy because that's, I'm really basic. I'm not like super like going to break it down, but it's the part of the toolkit of this. And by attacking it, by reading up, understanding, having that moment of reflection and uncomfortability, it's one of the toolkits that can be just thrown away, because of the system we've all grown up in through colonialism. This is one of the toolkits. It's just that simple. And if we're going to take this down, save our planet, which is what I'm most proper into, this is one of the toolkits that's got to go. You know, we cannot repair the planet, say, and leave it to future generations if we don't start dismantling certain things. And this is one of those things. White supremacy, it's a bit of a bullshit word. Don't get me a couple of words, but it's just something that everybody understands, really. It's just like a basic thing. You know, outside of this talking circle, if we went down the road and started talking about some of the way we've been talking, not everyone's going to know what the heck we're talking about. So sometimes you just need a really basic way of talking about things just to let people in, because not everyone's like us, you know. We're not all going to sit down and have a great big conversation like this. And sometimes you just need an easy in for folk to be able to get in, start understanding what's not right. And that, you know, that toolkit, it's got to go. It's got to go. If we've got any Black BIPOC allies listening to this, this is part of the work. This is part of the work. And BIPOC people are here to help, but we're not here to, like, for you to jump on our backs and do it. You've got to do the work. You've got to do the work if you want to make this world better, and ultimately so we can save this planet for all our wonderful kids. Not that I've got any, but like at least Hester's kids that I know of.
So much more to say. But I'm going to give you the rest of your evenings back and just say, I don't know how to say thank you, actually. Don't know really how to give my expression of thanks in full. Thank you for being in my life.
Thank you. Thanks for calling in space.
Yeah, Alfie, let's do it again. And if any of you want to like lead another time or give a particular focus or a question, they're big things. They're big things that we were touching on today. Alfie said on the backs of others. Yeah, you know, that's how we built. That's how it was built, right? This world was built on the backs and the slavery of others. And we got to admit that. Not we. It has to be recognized. And I just want to name a child that was lost, because I have the privilege of not worrying when my daughter goes to school that she might not come home again. Shukri Abdi, who was lost last year in February. And when you were talking earlier, I was just thinking of her 12-year-old girl. And it was because of her race that she was bullied and drowned. And we need to save all the other kids from this place must be safe, right, for all. I don't know how to end this. Anyone got another idea?
Bye everyone, I have to go. I've totally enjoyed this. It's really odd putting out your thoughts that you've had for years and trying to knock it out on screen. It's really weird saying these things out loud, because normally you don't talk about it, you just get on with life. And so this is definitely a bit of regen. I know it's educational, but it's definitely a bit of regen. And thank you ever so much for your time, guys. I'm going to ship off out. And thanks, Hester, big style, for setting this up. Mortier, Lieber, and Charlotte, boom, I'm out.
Cheers.
And Youssef, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you next time. See you soon. Go well.
Are there any questions,
Love
Hester,
and
as well?
gratitude.
Yeah.
I have not looked at all. I have not looked if there are questions. Should I have a quick look? Alfie,
we could
I know you,
put that
I know
into
you have to go.
Okay, I'm not gone, but let's hear if there's a question. If there's a question, I'll stay quickly. Have a look and see if there are any questions.
Thank you for sharing. I have the same reaction. Disableism. Facebook. Oh man, this is I'm not I'm not very good at this part of it, am I? Any questions? Do you know what? If you've got questions, get in touch and we'll get back to you. And if you want to know how to have these conversations as well, maybe that's something that can be shared. These skills of bringing up these difficult subjects, and we need more of them. We need more of these conversations. So I think we should leave it there. 15 minutes late, 15 minutes over.
Thank you.
Well worth
everyone.
it. Every
Oh, well.
moment of it. Fantastic.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Every
Bye.
blessing to you all.